This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Hey, welcome to today's War Room Moment. My name is Jason Miller, your podcast host, and I have a special guest on with us today. Tara, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me on today.
Awesome. Well, hey, I always say this on almost every podcast. I'm horrible about introducing people. So can you introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about yourself, and tell us what your superpower is?
Yeah, sure thing. So I am a high performance sleep strategist, and people will ask me, what does that mean? And so it really does mean, all, as I say, like all sleep is not created equally. And I know that because I used to get 8 hours of sleep every night, like clockwork. And I woke up feeling refreshed. And so I thought everything was fine. And then I started having one problem after another and never really connected it to my sleep. And luckily I found somebody who did. And when he said, I think you have a sleep problem, my reaction was like, what? No way. I get 8 hours of sleep. How could that be a problem? And he's like, well, didn't you tell me you take a power nap every day? I'm like, yeah, that's just because I'm a napper, And then I came to realize that if you're napping, if you're, drinking caffeine, if you are relying on adrenaline, training for an Ironman or running a Tough Mudder, all of those signs are things that your body is compensating for low performance sleep at night. And I know in my own case, once I recognized that and was able to turn my sleep performance around from low performance sleep to high performance sleep, it was a game changer. So that's why I do what I do as a high performance sleep strategist, because it can really help people achieve the things that they want in their lives, not only in business, which is important, but also in their personal lives. To really be able to have that well-rounded enjoyment of life professionally and personally.
Yeah. This is actually a topic that is extremely near and dear to my heart. As a retired military guy, combat veteran, I deal a lot with a lot of sleep problems. And it's something I've dealt with for years. And so I'm like a perfect case study to talk about. CBD has helped me a lot. That kind of thing has helped me a lot to not necessarily to go to sleep, but to stay asleep. Right. It's, you have tons of people out there that are on, CPAP machines and all of this stuff. And they're horrible. I was at the dentist a couple weeks ago and I was listening to the room next door, and they had did all the screenshots of the sinus and head and all that. And he said, he asked this person, he says, do you have sleep apnea? Because I can see it in your in his anatomy, right?
Yeah.
And he said, well, do you use a CPAP? And he said, yeah. And he said, I can tell you don't clean it. He could tell that just from looking at his x-rays.
I'll say that. I mean, that definitely is possible because it does, you can see it anatomically. But here's the thing that I really hope to help people get. This is what I'm working towards, that yes, sleep apnea would be the king of the sleep performance problems, because by that point you are not breathing a lot when you're sleeping, and you're not getting you're not cycling through the sleep stages as you need to. But what my goal is to say, hey, you know what? We're all somewhere on this continuum between healthy restorative sleep on one end and unhealthy sleep, like clinical sleep apnea on the other end. But there's a huge range in between that. And so if we can come to identify the things that are hinting at the fact that our sleep isn't doing what it needs to and do something about it, then we can not only stop the progression to really poor sleep, but we can have the energy that we need during the day. And I'll give you an example. So if you think about, I always compare it to a cell phone, right? And I say, why do we plug our cell phones in at night on the charger when we go to sleep? So that when we get up in the morning, the phone has a full charge. And then what happens when you forget? Before you know it, that phone is in low power mode and there are functions that aren't available to you and you're running around trying to look for a charge and whatever. Well, we're the same way. When we go to sleep, if we don't get high performance sleep, we're running around in low power mode. And everybody feels it different, Jason. Jason, some people may just feel physically tired, like they wake up tired, it takes coffee and whatever to get going. Some people may feel it more in terms of focus. They like, I have this to-do list that just isn't getting any shorter. I can't get anything done. Some people may feel it more emotionally, where either they get stressed, anxious, or irritable, or weepy, whatever it is. Everybody feels it in a different way. And so if we're able to connect the dots and say, all those things that you're experiencing, a lack of focus during the day, that's a real prime indicator that your sleep performance is at a level that's lower than you need it to. And then that's what I actually do. I go and I created an assessment that helps you look to see what are the things that you're dealing with. And then we assess what may be driving that, and we correct those kinds of things. And here's the real surprising thing, and this may be helpful for you, Jason. The reason that we have sleep problems at night is a result of what we do all day. It's a result of the way we breathe. It's a result of the way our body mechanics, and it's a result of the different behaviors that we have. So if we can get those things down during the day to a healthy way of being, then we're not going to end up with those problems at night when we're sleeping. And that's really what I help people do, to kind of identify that and then kind of address it so they get to that point. And I would imagine with you, if you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, as we were mentioning before, what are entrepreneurs known for? Working 24/7, pushing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, and definitely at some point, I think most people realize, wait a second, I really need to get enough sleep because I'm not able to function at 100% during the day if I don't. And then what I'm saying is, let's take it to the next level, because sleep isn't a numbers game. You definitely need between 7.5 and 8.5 hours of sleep, depending on your makeup. Mm-hmm. But the next job is to say, are those hours actually performing at the level that you need it to? Is your sleep giving you what you need for the day? And that's really what the next forefront is, the next frontier, if you will, to really help people look at that.
Yeah. Well, I look at it like I know when my kids are tired, right? I call it they're slangry. That's what I call them. It's just like if they don't get enough to eat, they get angry, right?
Yep.
And you're like,
the
why
hangry.
why are you so grouchy? It's like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with sleep. And like, I know there's tons and tons of work that needs to be done it's not just military, there's law enforcement, there's EMS, there's all these places, right?
Yeah.
And there's tons of work to be done in those fields, right? Because of post-traumatic stress, because of all these things. And, I was reading a study, this was just last week, I was reading a study, and it's a shocking number. I don't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to quote it, but it's a shocking number of CEOs during this last 2 years of the pandemic. Their performance has dropped massive percent because of over medicating on alcohol.
as a coping mechanism. But I'm
as
going
a
to
coping
actually
mechanism.
I'm going to
Yeah.
actually point out something in addition to that. You know, we know that the sleep levels, like 58% of people are now struggling with sleep. That's up astronomically. There's been a 20% increase in sleep medication use since before the pandemic was declared. But here's what I want people to think about. What happened when that pandemic was declared? What did we all start doing? We all started wearing masks, right? We were, those were mandated for health reasons, right? But what happens when you're wearing a mask? It changes the nature of your breathing. And if you think about our hierarchy of needs, right? We need to eat, right? We need to, but we can go for weeks if we have to. And we need water. We need to be hydrated, right? But you can survive a couple of days. It's not going to be pretty, but you can survive a couple of days. What about sleep? We know that's next on the line. Sleep after 24 hours, your brain is literally breaking down when you're not, if you haven't slept, right? But what about breathing? You have minutes, mere minutes to survive. So it is by far our top need. And when we go around and we're masking and we're still trying to do the same things, right? We're not like a surgeon who's not talking. We're still trying to communicate and everything, and it's changing the nature of our breathing. It has a downline kind of effect, and everything gets affected, including the sleep. And then when you're not sleeping, then you have all of those daytime problems. You see all of the increase in teenage suicides, teenage depression. As you said, CEOs self-medicating just to try to deal with it. It all comes from that basic sort of need, that basic adjustment, that the change in the breathing pattern from the mask, which then affected the sleep, which then left us, going on. I mean, people will push back on that with me and say, come on, how can one thing, change all that? And this is how I explain it. Because if you think about, what happens during sleep is that your brain literally has to shrink down in size, get flushed out so that it can repair and recharge, right? And if it doesn't get to happen, then you have a brain that's not functioning at 100%. And if the brain is what controls everything in the body, and it is, then isn't everything after that going to be affected? Of course, right? And so that's really the way we need to look at it. And that's why sleep is so critical, because we have to let our brains repair and recharge so that the brain can run the body. Otherwise, it's like some crazy commander, kind of just, running amok. And that's why we see all the problems that we see. But again, it's not just getting 8 hours of sleep, it's getting 8 hours of high performance sleep. I mean, if you ever wake up tired from a night of sleep, you didn't get high performance sleep. If you end up needing a nap during the day, like I did, then you didn't get high performance sleep. And if you end up, if you're having trouble falling asleep, any of those things, they're all telling you to look at your sleep. And you mentioned before about with sleep apnea, having a CPAP machine, or some people have those devices that pull their jaws forward to help. The important thing to know about those are just compensations. You really want to go and address the underlying cause that got you to that sleep problem, because if you don't, those things are just going to make the problem worse over time. So definitely use them in the short term, because getting the sleep is that important, but take the next step to figure out what the solution is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting looking at, the whole sleep apnea stuff and how that really kind of came in. It seems like it like really ramped up in the last past 4 or 5 years, really. Because you see it a lot now.
Yeah. Well, the technology has gotten so much better. So that's a big part of it, right? It used to be so hard to diagnose because you had to make an appointment in a sleep center, and people just didn't want to do that. Now they do have stuff that can be done, remotely, and the cloud can pick things up. It's not as good. It won't tell you that you don't have sleep apnea, but it will tell you if you do have it, you know what I mean? Because, and that's just because of the sensitivity activities, you get more things in a sleep center. But I say, like I said before, we don't want to find out that our sleep performance is that bad, but that we have clinical sleep apnea. We want to start cluing into it beforehand, just saying, my God, I'm so irritable and I'm driving and I'm cursing everybody out. Guess what? That's a sign that your battery has run so low during the day that you just don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with things that are coming at you. And then you have to say, why would my battery be running so low? Maybe I didn't get a full charge last night. And again, that's what my assessment does to really help pull those things apart. So I encourage everybody, rather than just saying, oh, I must just be an irritable person, or gee, I'm going to divorce my wife in my second divorce because I can't be married, maybe think there's a sleep performance problem that is just leaving you a little short on energy. And if you're able to get to sleep, you have a little more emotional bandwidth to deal with those kinds of things. It's like I said, everybody deals with it differently, especially if you think of like the type A person, right? They're driven hard, they work hard, they will produce, they're always performing high. But for a lot of them, it's like they can't be on a team. They can't get along with other people, whatever. That's a sign that there's this uneven, for them, it would be like they don't have the energy that they get from sleeping is going into performance and physical energy. They don't have anything left to for the emotional piece of it. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means, hey, look at your sleep performance, because you may be able to get the battery level up there, if you will, and just then have better relationships with people. Right. It's a big part, not only on the team for the job, but at home, right? If you're great at work, but home life sucks, well, that takes its toll on how you can perform at work too, because you're always just trying to ward that off, So that's what like I said, I encourage people to really look at the things they're dealing with during the day in a different way, to say, you know what, maybe it's not just me. Maybe there's something going on in my sleep that's not giving me the energy I need to have a full, balanced kind of life. And then again, there are definite things that you can do with it. And I know, because I did it myself, went from that low performance sleep to high performance sleep. And it really is a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, kind of the last thing I'm interested in getting your opinion on, because I read this, I don't know where I read it, and it wasn't that long ago, but it was talking about, we're sleeping all wrong. That if you go back to the way we used to sleep hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, whatever, we didn't sleep in 8-hour chunks. We slept for a few hours, and then we were up, and then we slept for a few hours, we were up, we slept for a few hours. You still got your 8 hours, but we didn't do this like whole 8-hour cycle of sleep. So I'm curious to what your opinion is on that.
Yeah. So I would say, what I would say is, what were people achieving during that time, right? Why were they sleeping in short spurts? Because they were in survival mode, right? They would get woken up at a noise. Is that a saber-toothed tiger? You know what I mean? And what was the culture like, and how much product, right? They were in survival mode, and they had to do that. But then what happened when we did evolve and we got to a place where we could sleep in a safer way, the natural rhythm leveled out so that we would get this longer stretch of sleep. So it's like, I think of it like an on and off switch, really, right? Your switch should be on during the day. You should be able to wake up, that switch flips on, and it should be able to stay on all day until the evening when you're like, okay, switch off, right? And you can fall asleep and you can stay asleep. But what has happened for so many of us now, certainly with cell phones, connectivity, feeling like you've always got to get back to that email within a nanosecond, all those kinds of things. We don't run on an on and off switch anymore. We run on a dimmer switch. Right. And so you wake up and you slowly get out of bed, and you can smell that coffee, and you go get a cup of coffee. Right. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm here now. By the end of the, and you have a cup during the day, whatever. By the end of the day, you're like, I got to get out for my run. I need my jog, or I'm never going to be able to survive or do that kind of thing, And those are really performance dips during the day when you get that tired, where you're like, I can't even focus anymore. what's happening to your productivity at that point? And ultimately, what happens to your bottom line, especially if the same thing is happening to all your employees? If everybody is experiencing these dips in performance every day, that's impacting your bottom line, right? And so instead, if we can say,
Absolutely.
listen, what? I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So if we can get to the mindset of saying, like even how many companies are bringing nap pods into the office now. So that's great. Like, let's say you have a new baby at home and you're getting woken up every night. So you have poor sleep performance at that point. Then the nap pod is great because you're going to have that dip in performance because you didn't get a good night of sleep the night before. So for that person in that stage of life, then the nap pod is a great idea because you will be able to bring their performance back up to the level that you want them to be. But what if you have somebody who's using that nap pod every single day? Every single day you're losing them for a bit. What if instead you can say, wait a second, let's not have a nap pod for daily use. Let's focus instead on that, getting that person to be able to really perform at night when the switch is off, right? Get their sleep to do what they need to do. And then they'll be on the whole day here at work, right? Like, so the nap pod is it should be used as for an acute situation. And if it's coming to be more chronic, then we should be looking at longer term solutions, which of course is getting at the whole sleep performance idea. So that's what I mean about shifting the way we look at things, because it really does impact our bottom line. We really want a sleep culture in our companies where it's not go take a nap in the nap pod if you need to every day, but it's like, let your brain do what it does best when you sleep, so you can come here and do what you can do best, for the team,
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, that was all like some of that even enlightening for me. So I hope there was some gold in there that people caught too. And kind of the second part of this, what I like to do is, because this was also designed to help sleep. Now let's help business, right?
Yeah.
So most of us have years and years and years of experience. We have buckets full of business struggles to share. What would be one that you would share, a business struggle that could help a young CEO that's just coming into the game?
Yeah. So definitely it goes back to what I was saying about that distribution of energy during the day and how it impacts your relationships at work. So I am definitely like the type A high achiever. I will get it done, and that kind of thing. But boy, was it costing me in terms of building relationships with people that I needed to build with in order to really grow the business. And what I didn't realize until I discovered this whole sleep performance thing was that shortness of temper and whatever, that wasn't really who I was. That was, a factor of the fact of the fact that I wasn't getting the sleep that I needed at night. And so I came to think that I'm just not going to be a team player. I'm just not going to be able to work with people. I'm just going to have to do this my way on my time and do as much as I can. And that's really limiting. And so once I, figured out the sleep angle and just saw the difference in how I was able to be more patient with people, more tolerant, more accepting, I was like, oh my God, like this, it has opened up doors for me in terms of collaborations and other kinds of things that wouldn't have been there, before I really improved my sleep performance. And so that's why I that's why I say it's so critical for people to just look and say, wait a second, what am I dealing with during the day? Is it who I am? Or is it maybe the fact that my sleep isn't doing what I needed to do and I'm running on, little less than I could be otherwise? And I think it's especially important for somebody who has the entrepreneurial spirit, like give yourself everything that you can. And the best way to do that is to get the sleep that you need. And again, it's not just a numbers game. It's really ensuring that the sleep performance is at the level that it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think most people know this, right? It's just knowing. Sometimes just because you know better doesn't mean you do better either. So
yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. I think most people now, we've had enough books come out that most people say, I need to get enough sleep. Right. I think and then you make a decision if you're going to do that or not. Right. But I think what most people don't realize is that the daytime challenges are really a result of nighttime sleep challenges. I mean, even to like go off track a little bit for a second and get like a little bit, even something like erectile dysfunction that is like, no man even wants to even go there just in case, right? But even erectile dysfunction is related to a sleep performance problem. So think about what that does to a guy who all of a sudden is experiencing that. Tell me that does not affect his overall sense of confidence and self-assuredness that he's going to bring into a business meeting. It does, because you have to work so hard to put that out of your head. And what do you have left to bring to the business meeting? So even something like that is related to sleep performance. And if we can help people make that connection and then go and improve the sleep performance and resolve that ED problem, well, then doesn't that person just come way up? And then don't they have a better family life as well? You know what I mean?
Literally come way up.
Exactly. So that's what I mean about really connecting the dots, because, take this pill, but it doesn't leave you do anything about all the psychological, oh my gosh, what's the matter with me that I'm having this problem? But it really, there is a real fundamental physiological cause that you can address. So, connect the dots. I always say this, use the XYZ formula. And this is what the XYZ formula is. If you have problem X, whatever it may be, irritability, erectile dysfunction, whatever, if you have problem X, ask why. Right? Don't just accept that that's just how it is. You ask why and make your primary suspect your Z's, your sleep. And I'm telling you, so many problems can be just reversed. And then you bring your full self to every interaction that you have. And that's how we grow our businesses. Yeah.
That's amazing insight. Thanks for that insight, for sure.
You're welcome.
Very good. Well, to kind of close things out here, I always like to ask this question, and that is, if you could have picked somebody to be here, dead or alive, mentor, friend, whatever, and you had a burning question you always wanted to ask, what would the question be, and who would have you brought to the show?
Oh, well, I have a lot of psychology in my background, and that really is what drives a lot of what, my thinking and my understanding of people and how to help them. And so I think I would love to have had Maslow here. Do you know Abraham Maslow? Right. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I would love to sit down with him and say, okay, we know that sleep is in those basic needs, but don't you think that we should flesh out that basic need part a little bit more? Give sleep its own kind of thing. How can we do that? Because I think, I think that would go so far in terms of helping people really buy into sleep performance. And plus, I think he'd just be fascinating to talk to in general.
Well, maybe you'd school him.
That's true. We have learned so much since his day, right? All the technology that lets us see our brains when we're sleeping. We definitely have learned so much. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Tara, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here today. I know we're all busy, and there again, we all have 168 hours in a week, right?
Yeah. And we have to make sure we devote enough to sleep, right?
That's right. But you took this hour out to be here, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. It was great talking to you, Jason. I had a wonderful time.
For sure. How do people get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. So my Yeah, my the best starting point is to go to counterfeitsleep.com. That's where my podcast is hosted, the Counterfeit Sleep podcast. And so it'll really give them an idea into the different things that I'm talking about. And then my business is HiPerSleep.com, like high performance sleep. And you can just send me an email there. We have the assessment that really gets you started to figure out, to really pinpoint everything so that we can come up with the strategies to to level up your sleep. So yeah, HiPerSleep.com to reach me.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, hey, Tara, again, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jason.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for attending today's War Room Moments. Remember, dream it, believe it, and then just go achieve it and get some good sleep while you're at it.
Bingo. Love it. Love it.
This is Jason Miller, your podcast host, signing off.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.